The Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return.
Hello, I'm Joni Siegel, the host of the Addiction Podcast. In 2022, over 100,000 people died from drug and alcohol abuse, and that number is growing daily. Fentanyl poisoning, pot, cocaine, heroin, and even psychedelics and alcohol all contribute to this crisis, while we're bombarded with promotions from thousands of rehabs. Newborns are born addicted, and the majority of homeless people struggle with drug addiction. Drug dealers exploit online resources to sell to teens, and antidepressant use is spiraling out of control. This podcast features brutally honest guest interviews revealing harsh realities and offering hope and solutions through their stories. We don't sugarcoat anything. Guests speak raw and real. More importantly, you'll find inspiration to understand, overcome, and achieve recovery, whether for yourself or to help others, some within your own family, many among your friends or associates. Whether you're seeking help or just a glimmer of hope, our podcast equips you with the latest insights to confront this generational battle. Many listeners tell us they want to join the fight, but do not have the time or money to act, lobby, or just help. If that's you, go to www.patreon.com/theaddictionpodcast and see how you can help. Tiffany Jenkins, I'm excited to have you here today. You just laid a bit of a bomb on me. Lay it on the listeners.
Yes. So I am a recovering addict, but prior to finding my way to recovery, I was in a relationship with a sheriff's deputy when I was arrested and charged with 20 felonies.
Hi, my name is Amy Newman, and my husband Bobby and I have a business called Newman Intervention Services. We provide intervention services for families who have loved ones struggling with drug addiction. Our goal is to help individuals get the support and treatment they need to overcome addiction and start on the path to recovery. With our personalized and compassionate approach, we guide families through the challenging process of getting their loved one into rehab and onto a road of a healthier future. Together, we can make a positive difference in the lives of those affected by drugs. If you or someone you know is in need of an intervention, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Let's work together and bring hope and healing to those battling addiction.
Call 866-989-4499 today and say the word podcast to get a 10% discount. Or go to newmaninterventions.com and type in the word podcast for a 10% discount. This service comes with a free 1-hour consultation with Bobby. Wow.
All at one time. I'm laughing because if I don't laugh, I'll cry about it.
I can imagine. But Tiffany, you've really come back, and we're going to talk a lot about what you're doing now. But you're big cheese. You're celebrity.
Oh man, I wouldn't go that far. I appreciate it. It makes me feel cool. I don't know. I'm very surprised at how many people I have in my little community. I'm very grateful and super honored that there's so many open-minded people willing to listen to conversations about addiction and mental health.
I think I agree. And I think very well done on what you're doing. But I think the fact that you are extremely candid and extremely honest, and I think that resonates with a lot of people, maybe some who can't be that honest and candid themselves. You speak for them, kind of.
I appreciate that. I think sometimes I'm a little too honest and I got to work on reeling it in sometimes. Sometimes I overshare.
Well, I understand. I got a filter that sometimes doesn't work very well. And I go, oops, put that filter back in place.
Exactly.
So I do understand. But Tiffany, just tell us a little bit of background on your addiction. What were you addicted to? How young were you when you started? Kind of how that progressed.
I was around 18 years old the first time I ever did anything, alcohol, drugs, anything like that. I was captain of the cheerleading squad at the time. I was a great kid, and I had this sip of alcohol randomly after a game one night, and it changed everything. I began chasing it like my life depended on it. Things that used to interest me no longer interested me, and I began skipping school, and eventually I dropped out of school within 3 months of taking that first sip of alcohol.
Wow.
Yeah,
And
and go
go
ahead,
ahead.
sorry.
No, you go ahead.
As things do in addiction, things progressed, and ultimately I discovered my drug of choice, which was opiates.
Okay.
Those did me in.
Okay. I understand. You know, I have said this on the podcast before. When you say you took one sip of alcohol and that was it, that's kind of a message we try and put out there that, maybe some people can drink alcohol and it doesn't go down that road, but you don't know. So it's like Russian
Mhm.
roulette.
Oh my gosh, I say that exact same thing all the time. I use that exact example, Russian roulette. You don't know until you pull the trigger, until you take that first sip. You don't know if you're predisposed to become, you know, addicted or have a substance use disorder. Absolutely. I say the same thing all the time. And unfortunately for me, um, I have it in me. I have it in my DNA or however it comes about. But like my sister, she could party all the time and just be done with it. Whereas once you give me a little bit, I don't have an off switch.
I understand.
I'm
I,
sure.
I do. I understand. And it's the Russian roulette analogy is really true for
Hmm.
a lot of people. And I've heard some horrible tragedies of people who were just prescribed antidepressants and yeah, and it goes really, really bad from there. So, okay, but I digress. So you went down the road of opiates and so it, were you working? Did you do a lot of what you've done, like, with media, like, with, Juggling the Jenkins? Was all of that going on while you were addicted, or was that after, or
No, no, that was much later.
okay.
At the point in time when I got addicted, I was waitressing, I was kind of controlling it in my eyes, like, I limited it to a certain number of opiates per day, and it was just for fun, and it was just something me and my friend were doing just to be crazy young adults, and then one night, I was very ill, and I felt very sick, and I told my friend I couldn't come out that night, and she asked if I had done any pills that day, and I said no, and she said, "Do one and you'll be fine." And so I went and I got one and I took it, and instantly the sickness went away, and that was the night I started doing drugs because I had to in order to not feel like I was dying. I
Wow.
thought I had to anyway in order to not feel like I was dying.
Right,
I didn't have to, but at the time, the easier choice. It's like if you're on fire, you're gonna reach for water to put it out. If you have this magic thing that can take away your pain, regardless of whether or not it caused it, that's
right.
what I did.
You are listening to the Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return. For more information on the podcast or to reach out if you have a story you would like to share with us, go to our Facebook page by the same name, or you can email us at theaddictionpodcast@yahoo.com or go to our website, theaddictionpodcast.com. And please remember to subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts and give us a 5-star review. We appreciate you listening to the Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return. We don't do this podcast because we are former addicts. We don't do this podcast because we have loved ones who have suffered from addiction. We do this podcast because we feel that addiction is one of the biggest problems facing the world today, and that no matter who you are, no matter your religion, no matter your income status, no matter your race, no matter anything about you, addiction affects you. This podcast is a free resource for anybody looking for help with addiction. If you would like to contribute to our podcast, go to www.patreon.com/theaddictionpodcast and make a donation of whatever amount you would like. Thank you for supporting us.
Once my level of desperation changed and my body physically depended on it, that's when my morals began to drop and things started to change and my behaviors became more risky in order to support this habit.
I got it. You know what people don't understand, and for our listeners, you've heard me say this, and I will probably say it many more times while this podcast goes on. What people don't understand about drug and alcohol addiction is that it's not just a choice. It's not just spiritually and mentally addicting. It's physically addicting.
Mm.
And when someone who's addicted to alcohol or drugs stops, they get really, really ill, and nobody wants to feel like that. And I just think so often people who have not experienced that, and I haven't experienced it, but I've heard enough to know that you can't just stop.
Right. And that's the thing too is I didn't want to stop. I thought to myself, like this really hurts if I don't have it and I'm not hurting anyone by having it. So I'll just keep doing it instead of what I should have done, which is detoxed and just never touched it again. Obviously, that would have been ideal, but I didn't care really, and I didn't think it was hurting anybody, and I hadn't stolen yet. I hadn't broken into anyone's homes or broken the law. I was maintaining. Every day I would go to work and get money from being a waitress, and I would go right to my drug dealer's house, get what I needed to make it through the next day, and it was just a cycle. Um, and when I changed the way I administered the drugs, um, I don't know how sensitive I should be because I don't wanna trigger anybody who's listening. Um,
I
but
think it's okay.
I became an IV drug user,
Okay.
and when that happened, that's when I got addicted to the ritual of doing it, and I was a whole other animal at this point. The money I was making wasn't enough. I needed more. I needed to keep that feeling going constantly, so I began stealing things.
What I understand. What caused that change? Because you were sort of kind of functioning. What made you kinda step over that
It
boundary, if you will, and shoot up?
Yeah, it was a day that I was very sick, and my best friend, who I partied with at the time, was like, "I couldn't get any of the other things that we usually do, but I just discovered this other type of opiate. The only problem is you have to inject it." And I was
Mm.
so sick, I was like, "Get over here. I don't care what it is." And at that point, I mean, she could have been like, "This it's made of gasoline and you have to drink it." I would have done it. I was desperate. So
Mm.
the first time I ever did it, it was a feeling unlike anything I'd ever experienced, and I immediately preferred it, and I immediately was addicted, almost immediately.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a different experience than what I was used to before.
Wow. And then what went on from there?
Well, I was in a relationship with a sheriff's deputy at the time, which when him and I first got together, it was after my first stint in rehab, I which I didn't take seriously at all, and I still drank and partied. I just wasn't doing the pills, so I thought I was okay. And that was when I met him, and I thought, "This is perfect." I can't do drugs if I'm with a police officer. And eventually I relapsed. And in my desperation to hide the fact that I was actively using drugs so that I could keep up appearances, I I began stealing things from around the home and I began pawning them. And when I ran out of my stuff to pawn, I started pawning his things. And just it was snowballing. I knew it was gonna end. I was hoping it would end in death, to be honest with you.
Mm.
I was hoping that that would be it, because that would be quick, it would be over, I wouldn't have to deal with the consequences of my actions or the reality that I'd created, but it just never came, and, eventually, I g I did something really stupid, and I staged a burglary in my home because I needed money out of his wallet, and he would know I was the one who took it, because I was the only one in the house, so I staged a whole burglary to get the money out of his wallet, and the police were like, "This is suspicious," and they began investigating and found my pawn history and confronted me out of bed and arrested me.
Mm. Wow. And did you actually go to jail?
Oh, yes. Yes, I went to jail. I went straight to an interrogation room, which was super weird walking past all of these police officers who I knew personally. I'd been to their weddings and barbecues with them and stuff, and now they were just looking at me like another loser off the streets, being carted in. And I was interrogated for a while, and at first I tried to deny it. And then I just got sick and I got tired and I just was ready to shed the weight of the lies. And so I did, and I just came clean about everything. And they told me I would be charged with around 20 felonies. It was between 17 and 20. Some of them dropped off, some of them got added, but they were gun charges and everything. And I ended up spending 120 days in jail.
Wow.
And then after that, I went to a 6-month residential treatment program. And this time I wanted it.
Mhm.
So I paid attention, and it was one of the greatest decisions I've ever made.
Wow. So how long have you been in recovery now?
Um, I have been in recovery. November of this year will be 13 years.
Wow. I actually usually say it differently. I know that pretty much the right terminology is in recovery, but I would say, how long have you been clean and sober?
Yeah.
And so 12 and a half years, that's freaking awesome. As I say, I have not been through it, but I know from all of the people that we've spoken to, it's not easy.
Mm.
And well done you
Thank you so
on
much.
making it through. Yes.
I did not listen. I did not. It's hard to take credit for any of it because I knew nothing when I came into recovery, and I had a little bit of hope, and that was it. And the rest was the people in recovery who came before me, grabbing my hand and showing me the way and showing up for me. I owe everything to them.
Well, okay, but now you're giving it to others. So there. I mean,
I'm trying.
that's really the story because, I don't think you become addicted in a vacuum, if you will. There are others around, and you don't become clean and sober in a vacuum because you have people who help you.
Right.
And now you give back, whether it's whether it's juggling the Jenkinses, whether it's doing a podcast or doing interviews or writing a book like you've written,
Mhm.
you're giving back. And there are people who are going to say, I read Tiffany's book and decided to get clean and sober. And that's the name of the game.
That's one of the most incredible compliments I get about my first book. People send it to their loved ones in jails and rehabs, and I've had messages from people who get released from jail, and they're like, "Reading your book is what made me wanna get help," and it's just I feel like that's my life's purpose right there. That makes it so that all of those terrible things that happened and all of those people who I hurt, it wasn't for nothing.
Right.
It's still horrible and sad, and, but
But it's in the past, and now you're giving back in the present and for the future, and that's what's important.
yes,
And
exactly.
the book that was out, give me the name of that one again. I know we talked about it the last time you were on.
It's High Achiever,
High
The
Achiever.
Incredible True Story of One Addict's Double Life.
Got it.
And that
what
book kind of
so
focuses in on the jail part and the things that led up to jail.
okay, and I can see how that would resonate with people who are going through it, you
Mhm.
know? So tell us about the new book. What's that
But
one about?
yeah, so the new book kind of picks up where the other one left off, although you don't have to have read the first book in order to get this book. There are a couple little nods to the first book in it, but I wanted to write it in a way that it was independent. It wasn't a sequel of any kind or anything. And um, it's interesting because this book has been a work in progress for many years, and it had taken a shape, and I had submitted the manuscript, and then life as I knew it got flipped upside down. So I had to basically rewrite the book into a book I never planned on writing. And it's um it just goes to show that life is going to life, and you have a choice. You know, I had a choice. I could have gotten high. I could have given up, which at times it was definitely an option, but instead I utilized the tools that I'd been given. And it's kind of a story um about how even though things get really tough, you don't have to use over it.
Yep. I read a little bit about it. It's called A Clean Mess, right?
Yes.
And I read that it starts off with a bang,
Mhm.
with a message that you got from your ex-husband.
Mhm.
Can you say what that was about?
Well, I don't wanna give too much away because,
Yeah.
I know that since it is used to hook people in the beginning, I wanna
Yes.
keep some of the mystery. And honestly, when I wrote this book, I tried to write it in a way that was tasteful and respectful of the situation because I know my kids are gonna grow up one day and hear about it, and I
Right.
never wanted to be responsible for changing the way they viewed their father, so I had to be very tricky how I wrote it, and so I didn't give too much information, but when you read it, you'll be able to kind of make your own determination about what happened.
I got it. But I can see how you could put a book together and talking about what your life has been like since, you got out of prison and how you've rebuilt your life. And then something like that happens and it's like, "Oh, now we have to pivot."
Oh, yes, the book was originally, it was a happy ending about how 2 addicts can make it through anything together.
Okay.
And then, that was not what the book was about anymore, and I couldn't release it that way to the public. I just couldn't because it wasn't true, and they would be sitting at home reading this book, looking at my page and being like, "Wait, this isn't matching up." So I needed the book to be as true to my current situation as possible,
Mm.
but I wasn't necessarily ready to tell the world about it, but I
Yep.
felt like I had to at that point, and I'm glad that I'm putting it out there because I think this experience will help other people who are going through something similar.
I
Oh,
agree. I agree. It's similar to your earlier book, which focuses on what got you in jail and how you got clean and sober. This is gonna it it from my understanding, and you can weigh in on this, getting clean and sober is one thing, but then you have to come up with the tools to manage life. Like you said, life happens. And so now this book is going to give people some of the tools that have helped you not relapse and get through life when it's been a little bit tricky.
exactly. When you're coming out of a life of addiction and jail and rehab and you're starting fresh as a sober adult for the first time, there is so many things that you don't consider until you're in it. And this book kind of travels along with me my first day in the halfway house, trying to find a job, trying not to date handsome guys in recovery because I'm not supposed to. And, it tells the story of me becoming a mother and how hard, it could be to stay sober and deal with all the hormones and everything. And it's kind of what happens now that I've been reintroduced to life clean.
Yep. Yep. So how many kids do you have?
I have 2, and it's interesting. I still say I have a bonus daughter, even though me and her dad are no longer together. I still definitely consider her one of my kids. I've been with her since she was 2, and she's, like, 14 now.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so she's a special kid in my heart, but 2
Okay.
2 kids, 9 and 10 years old.
Okay, I'm gonna say you have 3, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good. And this podcast, I'm gonna get it up toward the end of May. And what's the release date of your book?
June 3rd is
Oh,
the release date, and I'm very
okay.
excited and very nervous.
I don't think you have anything to be nervous about. I think people are gonna buy it because they know about your story and you are all over, social media. I was watching some little clips of you. And it was just one where you said, I can't say it because this is a clean podcast, but it was someone, I guess someone had asked if you'd been remarried. You were very clear about
Oh, yeah.
the possibility of getting remarried again, and it didn't sound like it was gonna happen.
Never.
Yeah, never with added things. All right, well, I'm gonna put the link to get your book in the show notes
Oh,
because
thank
it's
you.
'cause it's actually up on Amazon if you wanna pre-order a copy, I think you can do that. It's called A Clean Mess by Tiffany Jenkins. Tiffany, I think you're a rock star. Like I say, I love how candid you are. I love how honest you are. You know, obviously, our podcast, we've had so many people on who are in recovery who had histories like yours. But then there are so many who don't want to tell their story. And
Mhm.
I I honor that. I respect that. But when you do, when you tell your story, when you are honest and you do it like Tiffany does, then it helps other people. And
Mm.
that's where it's at.
Absolutely. If you can, I always say, share your story. It's scary, but, I also understand that people have different reasons for not being able to, and like you said, totally honor that as well.
Yep.
But, the things that I did in the darkness became the things that I use to help others now, and it's very freeing to be able to share your story.
I can believe that. Do you have any last words for our listeners?
Um, for the listeners, hi everybody, and you're amazing. And I think that this podcast is so important, and I'm honored to be on it. I think you all make such a difference in the world, and I'm super grateful for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you so much, Tiffany.
Thank you.
Well, I hope you stayed till the end. It was a delightful interview. Tiffany's book is called A Clean Mess, and it will be out next week, June 3rd, 2025, and it's available on Amazon. And if you look at the show notes, the link is there so you can buy it. And yeah, it's going to be good. We'll be back with another interview.
You have been listening to the Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return. For more information, reach out to us on Facebook or go to www.theaddictionpodcast.com. Our email is theaddictionpodcast@yahoo.com.